'Tis I. Hey everyone, glad to see you back. Glad to see you looking fresh. So, The Batman came out last week, and it has really blown a lot of us away, myself included. Wow, did I not expect The Batman to be as good as it was. I expected it to be at least pretty good, even great in fact. I walked in with pretty decent expectations. I mean, did you see those trailers? Did you see the reaction to like the DC fandom stuff? Did you see all the little clips they put out? Spectacular. Every little piece that they put out led up to the Batman's release. Told it as like, this is going to be something special. So it begs the question, will it be better than The Dark Knight? The Dark Knight seen as one of, if not the best comic book film. Heath Ledger's Joker, Christian Bale's Batman, the whole thing, just spectacular. Everyone knows that. Everyone's seen the movie. Everyone knows it's one of the best of all time. And then the Batman comes along, and it starts to ask the question, what if we have new competition? Because say what you will about Ben Affleck and his portrayal as Batman, I thought it was pretty good. It's very different. It's very comic booky. So say what you will about that, and now we're on to The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson. And it is a wholly new, grittier take. And I feel like every time Batman comes out, it's always, this is grittier than the last one. Which is true. You know, when 89 version came out, it was grittier than the 60s version. When Batman Begins came out, it was grittier than Batman and Robin. Batman vs. Superman is trying to be grittier, at least in the Batman stuff, than the Nolan trilogy. And this one takes it even a step further than that. So in terms of grit factor, this one has it. In terms of realism factor, it goes to the point of, maybe it's so gritty, so dark, so grimy, it kind of transforms more to fiction. And I think that's a really interesting thing, because you can look at The Dark Knight, and you can see comic book elements like Two-Face and the Joker. And even though they aren't super accurate to how they are in the comics, there are like some disbelief that, you know, Two-Face just looks like that now. That's just how his face is. We don't really question it because the world that it builds supports that. Batman in that universe is very different from Batman in The Batman, which, like I said, is very down-to-earth, very grounded. Of course, there are some sci-fi elements. I don't think you could have Batman be Batman without a little bit of, like, technology behind him. There are some elements in The Batman that are sci-fi-ish, so that makes it feel like Batman as well. So, in terms of, like, grit factor and realism, it sways either way. In terms of action, The Dark Knight has some great action sequences. That truck that flips over, iconic. The Batman has some excellent stuff in terms of action and suspense stuff, and seeing the visceral action, seeing how Batman will take down a common enemy is insane. To see the power behind all those punches really hits, and that's something I don't remember as much in The Dark Knight. Of course, The Dark Knight has some great action, like I said, not taken away from that. The Batman has the action going for it. But it's not really an action film. It's more of a detective film, which is something we haven't seen before also, including The Dark Knight. Christian Bale's Batman is not really a detective as much. He is a little, but he's not the world's greatest detective, and I'm not saying The Batman's is either. But I am saying that he does a lot more detecting in this. This is a detective film. And who we're detecting, or who we're working to fight, is the villain. And that, of course, is a big point. Who's better? The Batman's the Riddler or The Dark Knight's Joker? That is a tough question to ask. Because, of course, the Joker is iconic. And he's going to be iconic for a long time. He's Batman's other half. The other side of the coin, he's the perfect foil. And Heath Ledger absolutely nailed what he was going for. He has so many memorable lines. Of course, the "why so serious" has become synonymous in pop culture since 2008. And I think it's unfair to compare the two as much. That being said, the Riddler does have his own iconography. He does have a lot of memorable moments. He has a couple very memorable lines. The one that sticks out of my mind, of course, is the one that is, I think, said in one of the trailers. "If you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price for your blind eye?" And that has been in my head since seeing the movie that has really stuck out to me as one of the key moments in this film. And it's a line that I'll remember for a long time. And so the Riddler has more of a race on this than we expected going into this. I do still think the Joker will probably stand taller as more of an icon, but don't count the Riddler out. Other technical stuff, sound design, both are absolutely perfect. Music-wise, both have themes that are memorable. Right? The Dark Knight's theme is a lot of drum beats, very rhythmic. But in the Batman is a droning bum, 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 repeating 4 notes. And it's a menacing, encompassing theme that is repeated throughout the film. And I think it works tremendously well. So in that aspect, I would lean more towards the Batman doing it a little better. And then we could talk about characters, like who's better as Commissioner Gordon. Gary Oldman, Jeffrey Wright, both do a fantastic job in this. The Alfreds are both excellent in this. Other supporting characters, so you have a Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight. You have a Catwoman who you know... This is the best Catwoman we've seen on screen, bar none. And Catwoman is one of the most important Batman characters. And their relationship is phenomenal in this, and I feel like it is about time Catwoman got her due on the big screen in a grand way. You know, Michelle Pfeiffer has her fans, but unfortunately I'm not one of them. So to see this, and Zoe Kravitz just nail it. It is beautiful. The love interest in The Dark Knight as well. I don't think she's as compelling, unfortunately. Maggie Gyllenhaal does a great job in that movie, but she's no Catwoman. And even in The Dark Knight Rises, Catwoman's there, but she doesn't really feel like Selena Kyle as much. Catwoman in this is phenomenal. So, you know, in terms of side characters, you know, I lean more towards the Batman again, but again, what are we comparing here? What are we comparing here? We're comparing 2 different films that we see how different Batmen handle the situation differently. I think, for one, it's a phenomenal time to be able to sit and look at 2 different movies that came out 14 years apart from each other and say, these are 2 of the best of all time. These are 2 of the best comic book films, sure, if you want to segment them. 2 of the best films out there. The Batman is phenomenal. The Dark Knight, everyone knows is phenomenal. I think it's more interesting now to have a bigger conversation of what each one does better, not which one is better overall. Because I don't think it's an easy answer. I really don't. I think it's going to be a few years before we settle on the Batman's hype. And we can talk about both of these in their own respective lights, and we can see, as a collective, which one ranks higher. Because the Batman has had little time to catch up to the Dark Knight, and the Dark Knight has had well over a decade to establish itself as what it is. And also, a side note, the Batman is a wholly singular film. There is no build-up. There is no previous films. The Dark Knight has Batman Begins to build it up. So if we go from Batman Begins to Dark Knight, if we can go from the Batman to something else, we might have a different conversation. We might be talking about that Batman movie being, no question, the best. But then again, some people will sit here and say Michael Keaton's 89 version is the best version, it's untopped. And that's perfectly fine. Some people will say can't beat a classic in that Adam West is the best to go. Perfectly valid. And some people will sit here and say the Lego movie and the Lego Batman movie are the best. There'll always be a side of me that sits here and wonders, it's like, the Dark Knight versus the Batman, who has it? It's up to you. I can't decide. Again, maybe in 10 years when I can look back on both of these in their own different lights, and it's not as, like, fresh in my mind of seeing the Batman on the big screen and just being completely enthralled by it, versus the Dark Knight, which is more of a distant memory. We don't know how our experience is going to change, and we don't know. Maybe the Batman has a sequel and it's terrible, and it ruins our memory of the Batman. That could happen. Unfortunately, that is a very big possibility. I'll leave it to you. What do you think is better, the Dark Knight or the Batman? If you've seen the Batman already, of course. Don't just The Dark Knight's the easy choice if you haven't seen both of them, clearly. If you haven't seen The Dark Knight yet and you only seen The Batman, go watch that one. There's a reason people call it the best of all time. Absolutely phenomenal movies, the both of them. And that'll about do it for me. Thank you so very much for watching. As always, like this if you like this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you at some point. Now if we could just get a Superman movie this good, we'd be doing something now.